Hey everyone, welcome to the Friday live stream.
Hey guys, what's up?
How's everyone doing?
Hi. What's new?
Oh, we're 2022. This is our first live stream in 2022.
Hey, we made it.
Our third
Sort of.
year
Sort of, yeah, right?
Friday streaming.
Although we did not get through 2021 COVID free.
No, we didn't.
We didn't.
Nope.
So
not us four anyway.
So Evan and I both got COVID over Christmas.
Yep. Thanks, Santa.
And I'm not sure about how I got it. Evan, are you crystal clear how you got it?
Oh, I could have, grocery shopping, just kind of being out and about doing my normal thing. I must have just picked it up somewhere along the line. Although my wife, Jennifer, tested positive first for it a day before I did. And we had also just gotten our boosters 1 and 2 days prior to that. So at first we thought maybe we were feeling the effects of the booster.
Yeah.
Wasn't sure. So we waited a day or two, then took the test, and it was COVID.
Yeah. Yeah. So I went and got a COVID test the Thursday before Christmas. I had the about 80% of the symptoms that I was going to get, I had. So I was pretty, far into how sick I was going to get. I didn't get that sick. It was like a head cold. But, I had real symptoms. I got tested. I came back negative. The next day I took a home test. I came back super positive. Like a minute after I put the drops in, it was like reading positive. So it goes like that. You could get a negative and you could be sick. And it sucked. It ruined the holiday, right?
Yeah.
It sucked.
Oh my gosh. It was brutal.
You were on lockdown.
Yeah. I mean, it never got to the point where we felt we had to go to a hospital, get IV or anything like that. But it was like having the flu. The hardest part for me was the headaches that accompanied it because it interfered with my sleep. I couldn't put myself in a horizontal position. It seemed to exacerbate my headache. I tried sleeping in upright positions in a recliner and all these things. Just totally for 2 days, totally screwed up my sleep. And I was miserable from
Evan,
that.
let me ask you a question. Would you guess that having a severe headache with COVID predicts a good medical outcome, a bad medical outcome, or makes no difference?
I'll go in the middle and say it makes no difference.
I think it's good.
Why do you think it's good?
I honestly don't know. It's like my gut is telling me that from things I've read. I don't know. I can't back it up.
No, it is. That's correct. It's a predictor of a good clinical outcome.
Oh, is it? Well,
Yeah, and
didn't know that.
yeah, the question is, of course, why? And there's so many possible, correlations or associations that could be doing it.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a theory that
It's only a theory.
that headaches are, and like specifically migraines, maybe an adaptive response to viral infections, and overall, and essentially you're more. It's like it's a virus infection detector.
Oh,
So meant to change your behavior.
well, it did that. That's for sure.
Yeah, basically to
on the
isolate,
count.
not do anything.
So, Steve, the COVID headache, it was very much in the front of your head, right? Is that what you were experiencing? I've never had a headache right here before.
Mhm.
It was really a weird headache. So did you just say that we don't know what causes it? Like, why would where's the pain coming from?
Probably the trigeminal nerve, but your brain doesn't feel pain, right?
Yeah.
The
Well,
blood
emotionally
vessels,
it does. I mean,
blood
I have
vessels
emotional
can,
pain.
yeah, but the
Right,
brain
Bob?
itself is numb. Blood vessels can feel pain. The meninges can feel pain.
Mm-hmm.
The trigeminal nerves themselves can be the source of the pain. So it's hard to say specifically, like in any one case, any one person.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of interesting theories about like what the relationship is in terms of like is are headaches actually protective? Is it a marker? Is it just an epiphenomenon predicting something else that makes
Mhm.
people have a better outcome? It's hard to say, but they are starting to get down to the genetic level. This also has something to do with Neanderthal. Like there's some of the genes that we got from Neanderthal are protective, while the others are harmful.
Yeah.
And you can kind of trace that in different subpopulations because different subpopulations intermixed more or less with Neanderthal because they were mainly in Europe. It's like Africans, people whose ancestors never left Africa, don't have any Neanderthal genes, in them.
Yeah.
And they have different risks for migraines, different risks for COVID. It's interesting.
So
but we still don't really know. It's a lot of speculation at this point.
I want to state the obvious right now. I mean, I spent a lot of time alone when I was sick, and I was thinking quite a bit about the level of appreciation that I have for the fact that we got these vaccines in our arms.
Yeah.
Because I know for 100%, I know that it significantly lowered the threshold of my symptoms. It could have very easily saved me and Evan's life.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, I know.
Imagine going through this with no vaccines.
Yeah.
Without that layer of protection.
Forget it.
When we all found out that you had COVID, I mean, I wasn't worried because you were fully boosted. The chances were overwhelming that you would not end up in the hospital. But if you didn't have vaccines, it's a roll of the dice.
Yeah. I was very scared when I saw that result, and it hit me after 2 years of trying to dodge this virus. The reality of it was pretty serious for a little while. And then I just had to talk myself out of it because it's weird. It's just weird. You think back to the origin of this. We don't know exactly where it came from. Now we're on to the second mutation, which is the least known mutation or variant. I was scared. I was angry at myself.
Like the 8th or 9th, whatever. There's hundreds, thousands of mutations. The World Health Organization lists their variants of interest,
right,
and variants of concern.
Yeah.
So this is Omicron. I don't know how deep that is in the Greek alphabet. That's how many variants of either interest or concern that they had to put a Greek letter to. It's really like the third major variant. Like the alpha variant was the first one where it was had really different properties. It was more infectious. Then of course Delta just outcompeted every other variant.
Yeah.
Was responsible for its own wave. And now Omicron is even outcompeting Delta. It's even more contagious.
Oof.
Fortunately, it seems to be a
Everywhere.
little bit less severe. So hopefully that's the direction that the pandemic is heading in. Less severe variants, and some combination of the vaccine and people getting the virus are going to hopefully quickly lead to enough herd immunity that the pandemic will burn itself out.
Yeah.
And it'll still be there in the background, but it'll be more like a nuisance like the flu rather than affecting the economy and changing the way we live our lives.
Right.
But it's funny because even though it was very much like a heavy cold, there is something different about this kind of virus. Like if you've ever had the flu, as an example, it exhausts you, which is amazing. Like I had 4 days of unbelievable fatigue. Like fall asleep anytime I put my head down, I could fall asleep fatigue, and I did it. Right, bad.
Yeah. I would get a burst of energy. I'm like, okay, I'm feeling better. I'm going to do something. About 30 minutes later, I'm like, I have to now go lay down.
Yeah, not sit down, lay down. Right,
lay down.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then the other thing too is like it has this slow crawl on you. Like I just feel like I'm still definitely physically recovering from it. Like I don't have it anymore. I mean, I think I'm 13 days now or whatever. I don't know. I can't even do the math at this point. Bottom line is I'm still feeling it. I'm still tired. I'm still, got
mine's mostly still congestion, but I feel otherwise. I think I'm back.
Evan, did you get a flu test? I wonder if you
I didn't get a flu test. No.
You have a flu vaccine?
Yeah.
You got it? Because the congestion is really more of a flu-y symptom than
Oh, interesting.
I had congestion too.
But then why would the test have come up?
You might have had both.
Yeah, I suppose. I mean, yeah, there's a chance for that, sure.
And I think it's worth saying yet again, Omicron is crazy contagious, guys.
Really, really crazy.
Your normal protocols that you've been using that worked for the last 2 years, if you hadn't caught it yet, they don't work with Omicron. They don't work. I got it, and I don't know how I got it. It's one of those situations. Like it's very likely that you're going to catch it if you just continue doing what you did for the last 2 years. You have to go. You have to become more fastidious.
Yeah, I started double masking. I got my N95, and then over that I have a cloth one. Always, if I have to go out in public, if around anybody, even for a couple of minutes, I double mask.
Oh my God! Somebody in the chat, Grimbeard in the chat, said that one of his symptoms was high appetite. That happened to me.
Oh yeah,
is that a thing, Steve?
I've had that for years.
I lost my appetite. I absolutely didn't want food hardly at all during my 10-day.
Unbelievable.
Stint. It was totally opposite for me. I ate soup for the most part.
Unless he was kidding. He might have been joking, but I had a very significant appetite increase when I became sick. Never, and that's weird. If anything, it should be like you, Ev, right? It should be the opposite.
We had a couple questions in chat. I know I'm jumping in early, but well, first thing, the only thing more contagious than Omicron is hitting that like button. So if you can go ahead and do that, please.
All right,
I'm sorry.
Grimbeard said
I
that was a
agree.
joke.
Make it contagious.
That was a joke.
Yeah, it's only you, Jay. Only you.
Yeah, but it happened. Like, how
the
weird
like
is
button.
that?
So what about the IHU, or however you pronounce it, in France variant? Is there any?
The new variant?
Yeah, it's the.
I'm just hearing about it. I heard about it yesterday. Yeah. I don't know that we have any data on it yet.
I heard of a variant in China.
Mm-hmm.
I can see what the World Health Organization has to say about it.
And then there was a couple questions on Facebook. Somebody was asking, do we all recommend vaccines?
Yeah, of course.
Yes, I recommend them.
Yeah, I mean, I know we've been talking about this for a year and a half now. If you look at the vaccines in two different ways, you can look at it as an individual. What's the risk versus benefit? Getting the vaccine versus not getting the vaccine. The benefit of getting the vaccine is order of magnitudes greater than any tiny risk of getting the vaccine. This is across the board. Now there may be individual people who have specific medical issues where that's different. You'll know who you are, and obviously you'll be talking to your physician. But unless you have something which would put you at particular risk, for getting the vaccine, it's overwhelmingly beneficial to you as an individual, no matter what demographic you're in, to get the vaccine versus not get the vaccine. But if you look at it from a societal level, there's also additional benefits to everyone getting vaccinated, because that's how we're going to shut down this pandemic and get back to our normal lives.
Yeah.
Right.
You're also protecting people around you. So it's there's lots of downstream benefit as well, beyond just the medical benefits to yourself personally. So absolutely, not only, and the thing is, the protection against Omicron is being boosted. So you have to get boosted in order to really have a decent protection from Omicron. Just being vaccinated gives you like about a 30% protection, but the antibody titers are so high after getting boosted that that's where you get the significant protection.
So Keith Davies asked, what do you
Yeah.
say to a person that
Comment.
says they think they had it, so they don't need a vaccine?
I mean, you may have increased resistance for 4, 5, 6 months, maybe, but after that, you need to be vaccinated and boosted. So yeah, it helps you for a little while. But if they say, yeah, I had it 8 months ago, 9 months ago, and people have told me that, I'm like, dude, that was 8 months ago. Any increased immunity has waned big time by then. By now.
Yeah. So first of all, Bob said is right. The
course it
part of
is.
the reason for the boosters is not just to increase the amount of antibodies, but to extend that. So if you were infected in the past, you still need to get vaccinated. But also, the group of people with the highest antibody titers are those who were infected and got vaccinated. The combination is very, very effective. So if you already took the hit of getting the infection, you took all the risk and the long COVID or whatever you have, you might as well take the full advantage of that by getting vaccinated and boosted, so that you have the maximal possible immunity. And then again, as these new variants emerge, prior infection is not that protective against newer variants.
Yeah.
That's
the key thing right there.
Omicron can reinfect people who were infected with Delta or with Alpha or whatever.
Plus, everybody's body is different. Two people like Evan and I got it. My immunity might be a lot less than Evan's in 6 months, just because I'm a different person. Like it's not like we have a machine that's telling us every day how high our immunity is. Like, you got to get vaccinated to keep your immunity as high as possible. So you're rolling the dice. If you're not getting a vaccine, regardless of having COVID or not, you're rolling the dice, because it can kill you. It can kill you. That's the thing. If you're unvaccinated, it can crawl up your spine and kill you. Tell your friend that. And tell him to call me, and I'll talk to him for you, Keith. So there's other things to talk about. I'm not going to dwell too long on this, but a year and a day ago, one of the worst things that could happen to the country that I live in happened. And I don't want to pretend or ignore it, or people don't want to talk about it because it's depressing. Yes, it's depressing. But there was an insurrection in the United States. It was brought into reality by the current seated president at the time. This is an absolutely insane thing to take place, but it took place. And not only am I humiliated as a U.S. citizen that this type of crap happened in our country, because we have all these ideals and things that we like to say about the United States. You're programmed in every as an American, I was programmed to think that my country is the best country and all this crap. And you know what? It's not even close to the best country. Our politicians are compromised. And we had a lunatic run this country for 4 years, and that's it. And if you're a Trump supporter, you are part of the problem. And looking back on
it is more complicated than that. It's
an hour and a half show, Steve. How far in the woods do you want to get?
Well, you brought it up. The fact is that this is a consequence of a very long-term and deep factors in our culture, mainly or at least significantly, the increase in conspiracy theories. Conspiracy thinking has been dramatically increasing over time in this country, and to the point where they're ubiquitous. Like every pseudoscience, everything we encounter now has a conspiracy layer to it, and a lot of people believe in opportunistically believe in conspiracy theories. Whatever whatever political party you belong to or ideology you have or whatever, you can support any belief that you want. Just got to layer on the conspiracy theory, and so that creates this this world where we have groups of people living in a completely entirely different information ecosystems. The people who supported or even still to this day support the insurrection or are not horrified by it. They think that they were the patriots trying to save the country. They're beyond evidence at this point because they have their narrative that has been hammered home to them over the last year, and they cannot trust any information from any other source. So it's the situation. This is a symptom of a much more dangerous situation. That there's not going to be any quick fix to.
Yeah.
Yeah,
but I have to always wade through my emotions before I can get to the intellectual part of what's happening, right? Having the anniversary of January 6th come and listening to Biden's speech. I've said this many times on Facebook, whatever. Like I don't give a crap who you are, what politician you are, what party you belong to. You get zero loyalty from me. Zero. Everybody should be held up to the same standards. I don't care what party you belong to. I grew up a Republican. I became a non-Republican because of Trump. I think all politicians have to be held up to the same standards, and they all, at this point, I don't think we have a very good situation on our hands with the current set of politicians that we have. I think there's a ton of corruption and greed and power hungry, behavior. But what Trump did was so goddamn bad.
Mm-hmm.
And it had such an unbelievable negative impact on this country. And I've fully taken the position now that if you're a Trump supporter, you are part of the problem. And I don't want to pretend that isn't the reality that we live in. We do live in that reality. If you support that man and what happened during those 4 years that he did in office and what he did with the election, then you are part of the problem. And those people need to be dealt with just like the politicians need to be dealt with.
What does that mean? Need to be dealt with.
Meaning that we need to. I don't want to I know that it's uncomfortable to talk about, and I know that people are trying to avoid these conversations because we're in this political zone right now where you can just kind of get back to the way things used to be. But that's bullshit. We need to talk about it. We need to confront them. We need to make them feel uncomfortable for the position that they're taking. We need to make them think about it, whether it works or not. I don't think we should just sit here and go, well, forget it. We shouldn't talk. I don't think it's going to work, but I certainly am not giving them a pass and letting it go. Because
listen, you definitely shouldn't give people a pass on believing and promoting and parroting demonstrable nonsense, things that are unequivocally, objectively wrong, right? The election was not stolen. That is as true as we could say as a society, as objectively as possible. We have a process. It's like science, right? You could disagree about things where there's room for interpretation, but there's a process. And we went through the process. There were audits, there were legal cases, whatever. We went through the formal process that we have to determine the election outcome, and they just didn't like the outcome.
Yeah.
So the problem is, it's okay for people to disagree, to have different priorities, different ideology, whatever. That's what politics is about. I don't fault people for having a different political opinion.
You want that. You want people to argue and
absolutely
to test each other's premises.
A democracy requires that there is common ground, right? And that that people support democracy ahead of their ideology and their party. Or it's like, within to use it again, the scientific analogy, all scientists are playing by the same rules, the rules of science. And you can disagree about how to interpret the data, how the universe works. That's fine, but we all follow the same rules. And that's how we resolve our differences. It's within the system of science. If you lose, meaning that the evidence goes against your pet theory, and then you just cheat, by saying, well, I'm just going to ignore the evidence that I don't like. I'm going to make claims that are not based on evidence. I'm going to, whatever, just completely change the rules in order to fit my outcome. We call that pseudoscience, right? So now what we have is basically pseudo democracy. It's only a democracy if everybody goes by the outcome. Once we have a fair election, we go through the system as everyone. We all, we have a system. We all agree this is how things work. We do it. You don't like the outcome. You can't say that. Well, I don't like that outcome. Therefore, it's fake, and I'm going to oppose it. That's not. It's not a democracy. It's not how democracy works.
Yeah.
So that's the problem that we're having. Worse than Trump. I mean, I think Trump is he is a narcissistic idiot. The guy really is a complete moron. And although he's very savvy in terms of manipulating the media, I think that's his only real skill. But the people I blame more are the Republicans who are supporting Trump's lie, knowing it's a lie.
For power.
They know it's a lie. They know it's a lie. They know it's nonsense. They criticized Trump initially, and for their own short-term political survival, they are promoting essentially the destruction of our democracy.
If you watch a video, there are videos on YouTube.
Unbelievable. You
can watch Ted Cruz rip Donald Trump apart before
trigger warning, Ted Cruz, though. We have to do that by law. You have to say it.
Yeah, you're right. Trigger warning. But the point is, you could see some of these politicians, some senators actually ripping into Trump when he was running, and they're trying to convince their own party, let's not let this guy get any footing. And I'm telling you, it's one of the most disgusting things to see someone standing there who are a pane of glass when it comes to their like the legitimacy of their scruples and of the kind of person that they are. Ted Cruz is a profound lying piece of shit who has absolutely no ground to stand on. He is worthless as a human being, in my opinion. And there he is in an incredible seat of power, like banging Trump's drum harder than anybody now. Like what a profound, ignorant moron do you have to be to pull that switcheroo? I mean, he knows that there's video of him putting Trump down and telling them, please don't give this guy power. Like what the? I just can't believe it. I can't believe that we have people that can sit there and do that, and other people are looking at them and just eating what they say. Like, yep. Like,
it's complicated. So, and that happens because our system has been distorted to such an extent that the politicians are no longer, amenable to the will of the voters. Right?
Yeah.
That's what gerrymandering is. The whole point of gerrymandering is to make safe seats, so that which favors the extremists, right? Because then whoever wins that seat is determined by the primary, and usually the primary is won by the person who's the more extreme in their party. But they don't have to ever win a general election and appeal to the middle, because they're in a jerry-rigged, gerrymandered seat that is completely safe for them. And so that also that doesn't matter what the voters think or what their constituents think, because they're in a completely safe seat. So that again breeds further and further extremism. So as a result, they can be utterly shameless. They've essentially learned, American politicians have learned that they pay no price for being utterly shameless. They pay no price for lying, for being completely intellectually dishonest.
Yep.
And so they continue to do it because there's no political price to doing that. And Trump basically proved that there's no price to being as dishonest, as craven as you can possibly be.
So far, what are the repercussions? Like this was something that we were talking about on the podcast. You'll hear about it that we just recorded. But the idea of, like a rich person that starts a company that cooks into the idea of how the company is going to make money, the fact that they're going to break the law, and the fact that the law has no teeth. So it's just a financial situation to deal with at that point. We're going to break some laws. We're going to get into a little hot water, but we're going to make $1 billion, and it's only going to cost us $2 million to get out of the legal trouble. So screw it. Like,
Yeah.
in my opinion, that's one of the root causes of this. The consequences should be profound. They should be profound, and we should have a system of consequences that deal with things like this. But instead, I mean, we have a faux noble class of people in this country that are legitimately acting above the law, can essentially get away with way more than anybody should. And you think about,
so the question is there a fix at this point, or are we past the point where
or are we
the
in a
system is
tailspin?
too broken to fix itself, right? This is their sort of, that's the big question now for like 2022, 2023 is, is the system fixable, or beyond the point of no return?
So let's I want to move on to another topic too. And I know people don't want to, there's a lot of people that probably don't want to hear this conversation, but I have one question to put to you guys. So the gerrymandering that has been shorn up, right? It already existed. They made it worse. If the voters go out there and they are like, all right, fine, they made it more difficult for us to vote, but we're all going to vote. And people do go out and try to vote. Is the gerrymandering actually going to make it so people are not going to be able to vote?
You're confusing two different things. Gerrymandering has nothing to do with the ability of people.
You're totally right. I'm sorry, I know what gerrymandering
You're talking about voter suppression.
Voter suppression. The gerrymandering,
let me tell you,
plays with the numbers.
There's a lot of data. There's a lot of data on voter suppression.
Yeah.
And the bottom line is, it doesn't have that much of an effect. It just doesn't. If people really want to vote, they'll vote. The thing is, in a very close election, a 1% skew, can make the difference. So I'm not saying it won't ever throw an election, and it it is being used to target specific groups, to disenfranchise specific groups, which is horrible. But in the big picture, statistically, it doesn't have that much of an effect on voter turnout. It's still bad, and we need to take care of it. But it's actually not the big problem. It's not the biggest problem. The other thing that's really interesting is that after all the gerrymandering the Republicans did this last cycle, they're actually in no better a position than they were before. Yeah. Because they actually were forced in a way to use their when they were in control of state legislatures, so that they could, especially in swing states, so that they could gerrymander. They used their gerrymandering ability to shore up their existing safe representatives, because the demographics are moving against them. So rather than expand the number of safe seats, they had to shore up their existing safe seats. What it did result in fewer competitive seats, which is really a bad thing, but not necessarily a bigger Republican advantage.
Yeah.
But the biggest problem is that are the state legislatures that are changing the laws to make it easier to overthrow the will of the voters, for the legislatures to throw out the vote, to come up with any excuse, make up voter fraud, and say we're going to just appoint our own electors, to fire people who don't toe the party line, to replace nonpartisan election officials with partisan election officials.
And when they start doing that, it's going to incite violence.
Yeah.
People are going to die. This is going to be very bad.
So this is the big risk. So, the gerrymandering and voter fraud and voter suppression are both bad, and we need to deal with them, but they're not an existential threat to our democracy right now. They're problems that we need to fix. The subverting the election process is an existential threat, because imagine if, like, the worst case scenario would be, imagine say 2024, whoever's running, let's just say it's a rematch between Biden and Trump. Biden wins the electoral vote. Again, it's like there's pretty much a similar outcome where he has a huge margin in the popular vote. He has a modest margin in the electoral count, but several swing states with Republican legislatures throw the election to Trump, and the Republican Congress basically gives the election to Trump. What's everyone else going to do? What are Democrats going to do? They're going to lose their effing mind. That is going to be worse than what happened on January 6th.
I know, because this is what freaks me out about that. There are times there are circumstances that have come up in history where you see people say, okay, now I'm in. Now I'm in. I'm fighting the war. You know, this is when shit turns violent.
Mm-hmm.
And to think that our politicians are aware of this. They're not, again, most
Well, that's
of them
the
are,
thing is the politicians who know they're heading down the road to destroying American democracy and autocracy, et cetera, and they're doing it anyway.
Yeah.
Those are the worst people, I think, in this current dust up. They're the worst. They're not, Trump is doing it because he's a narcissist and he's a loser and he's an idiot. People like Cruz are doing it because they are selfish and they don't care. Then they're willing to risk democracy to get their short-term political advantage. And there just aren't enough people anymore. There aren't enough people in the system to say, okay, let's slow down. We need some bipartisan, shoring up of our democracy to make sure that the rules are still working. This is still a self-sustaining system.
yeah.
We're not there. We don't have what it takes. And the Senate, of course, is broken because of the filibuster rules. So we have to get to 60 votes. But the other thing is that like even the so-called like moderate, reasonable Republicans are nowhere to be seen. Nowhere. Like there isn't a single Republican. Even the most moderate Republicans are like, yeah, I'll vote for voter reform to save our democracy.
No, it's
None of them
unreal.
would.
It's unreal what's going on. All right, let's change the topic.
Yeah.
Lots of people have been
Yeah,
asking.
let's do that. This is
So
just
I have-
way too depressing because
I know,
Wait,
but
I have-
Bob, it was.
I have
it
some
was
stuff
the,
too.
It was the
All right.
anniversary.
because
Well, all right, but hold on.
we're
Yeah, I just
doomed.
want to.
Okay, go ahead.
We'll do it right after we talk about Elon Musk because a lot of people have been asking us to just come out and talk about it. So I'll tell you what. Let me give you my quickie story. So, Elon Musk. I'm trying to like line things up in my head, like order of events. Bottom line
It was a Wednesday.
at some point in time, Elon Musk was reading books about critical thinking or something along those lines. Made a couple of tweets about it. Then Everyday Astronaut had an exchange with him and recommended our book to him. And then Elon, a few days went by, and then Elon tweeted a thumbs up about our book.
Yeah,
I ended up sending a message to all the SGU patrons. I just let them know that this happened. I say, hey, apparently Elon likes our book. And I got a lot of messages back with people like pissed off and how could you be okay with this and all that. And I wrote a response to them, and it was here's a very abbreviated, probably slightly altered version because of my memory. But I basically said, this is a billionaire. This is one of the most famous people on the planet. And if that kind of person is bending an eye towards skepticism, if they are giving a nod to skepticism, why the hell would we reject it in any way? That guy has 60 million people following him on Twitter. He's got the attention of the world stage. And he is saying things like, there's 50 cognitive biases that all children should learn in school. Like this is what the news is saying, that he's saying things like this. He is clearly, leaning towards some type of critical thinking, whether he's aware of it or not, or fully comprehending the arena that he's stepping in. How in any way, shape, or form can that be interpreted as a bad thing? We want people that famous with that much reach and that much power talking about critical thinking. Just because you don't like what the guy has said and done in the past doesn't mean that you don't. What does that mean? We don't want him to talk about things that we do want him to talk about? So
Yeah,
I don't get it. I don't get the attitude. Like this is a win.
couple
No
of
matter how
things.
you look at it, it's a win.
I have a couple of like big picture thoughts about it. So, first of all, people are complicated, right? We're all a mix of good and bad things, and most people are not evil, or they're not all bad or even all good. Everyone that we look up to has their dark side, and people can be a mix of good and bad impulses, or they're good in some ways and bad in other ways. so just chill out. We're just all this way. That's not to give anybody a pass on the bad things, but this notion that we have to slot people into like this black and white, good or bad, is counterproductive. It's not
Impractical.
reality. Yeah. I mean, you have to be really far down, the road before I would be willing to say, yeah, your bad is so far in excess of anything good you might be doing.
Yeah, like Trump is in that category. Like I don't want to hear anything that
if you're
comes
destroying
out of
our
his mouth at this
democracy,
point.
then sure.
All right. So one person in the chat said this is what the person just wrote regarding Elon. He said anti-vax things. He's anti-union. He does not pay any taxes. He's a douchebag as a person. How much more do you need to hear? Okay, so my retort to you is I'm not disagreeing with any of that. But are you telling me that we should reject or in some way the fact that he is showing signs of becoming a critical thinker and that he's telling the public about critical thinking? Everything that you listed there does not negate the positiveness of him doing these things. And that's what I'm talking about. I don't give a shit that he talked about us. I liked it. It made me happy for a day. And now I'm looking at it more like a lot of people could have just been introduced to some very minor form of critical thinking that would never have been introduced to it before. And there's anything negative about that. I can't find anything negative about that, regardless of the fact that he didn't pay taxes. You don't like him. He said anti-vax things. If Joe Rogan tomorrow started telling people to read a book about skepticism or about logical fallacies, I'd be like, yeah, Joe Rogan's an asshole, but damn, 300 million people just heard that. How can you argue against that?
So this leads to my next big picture point, which, and I think this is, really big picture of that. I think just culturally, this is why we're heading in this direction of polarization, because, again, everyone's either like they're either a hero or an enemy, right? You're either a complete douchebag or you're a wonderful person. And we have to be all in. Either you're a hater or you're a fanboy, right? And if you're not hating on him, then you're a fanboy. It's like, oh, you know what? I can take people as they are.
So much for
I could.
Gotta love the binary choices in life.
Elon does. I admire the fact that he's invested so much money into SpaceX, and SpaceX has done some incredible things. I admire the fact is like, what are the things we could change about the world that will head us in a better direction? I want electric cars and solar panels and batteries. He's trying to do something. I give him credit for that. Yes, he's also, anyone who's a billionaire has probably done some shady things, business wise, and I don't agree with with a lot of the things that he says. He speaks off the cuff and out of turn. Anyone with that much power is going to fall for that, thinking that because they're a celebrity or because they're rich and powerful or very successful in one realm, that they can spout their opinion about anything, right?
Yeah.
Sure, there's a lot. If you want to criticize, there's a lot to criticize, and we're not giving them a pass on any of the negative things, but we're not going to ignore the good things either. But here's the thing. Again, for the vast majority of people, unless you're a psychopath or a con artist, like, again, way over the line, for the vast majority of people, the corrective response to them doing things you don't like, in my opinion, is nurturing and education and conversation, trying to make them help them be a better person while you're trying to become a better person yourself. Because if you think any of you out there are this pristine, pure beacons of virtue, you're deluded, because no one is. We're not. No one is. And we all screw up. We're all just people just trying to get through, this crazy life. So yeah, if Elon is like, hey, Skeptic's Guidebook is awesome, he's like interested now in cognitive biases, absolutely, we should nurture the skepticism with it. Absolutely. There's
could you
no
imagine,
downside to that.
Steve, could you imagine? I mean, Elon, like, his table scraps could transform the skeptical movement. Imagine if he was like, hey, I like it. Look at what these people are doing. I'm interested in this. I think that, as a philanthropist, he could be like, let me throw 20 million at that and see what happens. Could you imagine what that could do for skepticism?
Whatever. Just the fact that he has an outlet. But again, I had this conversation to everybody. This applies to everybody, not even necessarily, especially to Elon, and he shouldn't be exempt from it either. I've rejected since the beginning of my skeptical career, there have always been purists in the skeptical movement who want to exclude people that they disagree with on one thing, or even if it's a big thing, or just.
And what does that smack of, Steve? That smacks of like religion, right? It's like,
Well, yeah,
So look at all the different versions of Christianity, and like you have one minor
joke.
It is a joke, but it's real, Bob. They have these tiny minor differences in what the religions
Emo
believe, and
Phillips.
they go to war with each other.
I mean, let's face it, the skeptical movement, which is like the most disappointing thing about like the last 20 years of skepticism, is we forgot to embrace our common ground, right? The overlap, what the things that join skeptics together, that we want to promote critical thinking and scientific literacy and reason, and push back against fraud and pseudoscience and authoritarianism and all that. And we fell into infighting over things that are irrelevant to skepticism. They're not that they're not important, but let's just because, like, for example, if you're a libertarian or a liberal, did we really have to completely splinter into political groups within the skeptical movement? Like, we couldn't be together as skeptics despite our differences. That was completely unnecessary. It was mainly caused by this purist, absolute, you're either 100% for me or 100% against me kind of nonsense. And it was just really very, very disappointing. And I think this is the thing. This gets back to our discussion about, the political parties in the United States. It's the same thing. And I know it's hard. But and this is why I do disagree with you, Jay, when you start talking about like rank and file Trump supporters. We have to do something about them or whatever. Like, we can't tolerate them anymore.
I'm not gonna keep my mouth shut for the sake of keeping the peace. I agree. Look, I'm not saying I'm going to start throwing punches, but I am not going to just let there's people in my life who I'm like, I'm not going to talk about that. I changed my mind. I want them to be uncomfortable. I want to hold up a mirror, and I want them to have to face the fact that they are supporting a party that is not about equal rights, is not about actually helping people. Like I want them to see, I want to hold up a mirror to them and have to make them yet another time explain why they support that party. I want to watch them squirm.
But you're not going to get anywhere with that approach.
I know. I don't give a shit. I just think it's the
yeah,
right
but that's
thing
the
to
problem.
do.
See, that is the problem. And I'm not going to say you're like as much of a problem as they are, but that's the deeper problem, is when, it's very easy to focus on your anger and your emotions and you want, of course I want to hold, somebody like that up to a mirror, have the scales fall from their eyes, and for them to realize, how completely wrong they've been. But we all know from doing this for decades that never works, or rarely
but Steve,
works. It so rarely works. It's not a viable strategy.
I am saying that,
and
we
if you
should
say
no longer
you don't care, you're saying you're basically saying, I give up on society. I give up. It's going to hell.
That's not what I'm
I
saying.
just want to have fun on our way down by
That's not
bashing
what I'm
society.
saying. That's not
I
what I'm
agree with
saying.
that. I've given up quite a while ago.
That's not what I'm saying. What I am saying,
but that's effectively that's the result of what you're saying.
I still want. I'm still going to vote. I'm still going to try to educate people. I'm still going to try to put positive information. But when I am faced with that cookie cutter Republican Trump supporter that I have been faced with nonstop for the past 6 years, when I'm faced with that person, I want them to feel as uncomfortable as they have made me feel. I want the social.
So you're serving your own emotion and your need for catharsis rather than taking any constructive way out of the situation that we're in.
Steve, there is no constructive way. I just think they deserve.
If you think that there isn't, the thing is, when you do speak, I know we have some extreme people close to us, and we cannot generalize from them, right? We can't generalize from the people in our orbit who are at the most extreme end of the spectrum. That is not your rank and file. Most people, are surprised to find out how much they have in common with the other side when you actually talk to them as a person rather than thinking of them as a group, And we have to get away from that, Jay. It is that is the road to hell.
Steve,
That is not going to get us anywhere. I'm not saying it's going to work. I'm not saying it's easy. I'm just saying if there's any chance of us starting to, elevate out of the mess that we're in, we have to start looking at people like people, trying to understand the psychosocial, cultural processes that have led us to this situation, rather than
Steve,
blaming individuals.
Our stance on this position, when you if you just take a cookie cutter version of both sides, we're fighting for the future of this country.
Yeah. Are we? Or are you just trying to feel good while
no, but I mean,
burns?
whether you want to acknowledge it or not, I mean, there is a demarcation line that, in my opinion, by my perception, is palpable. And I'm tired of pretending that there isn't this unbelievable giant white elephant in the room. It's there. And one of the things that I want to do, Evan, did you just make a noise that made me laugh?
I did not. No,
I thought I heard something that you know what I'm talking about.
No, it wasn't me.
But I don't want to pretend that isn't there anymore. Like I'm sitting around. I've been unconsciously stewing about not talking about this. And like the first time I've talked about it in a long time was on Facebook yesterday. I broke the seal and I'm like, I got to say something about January 6th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So my point is that I'm no longer going to do things to make it easy on them. I want them to be uncomfortable because of the position that they hold.
Yeah, but I don't even like the way you're framing it. It's not about making them feel uncomfortable or making them feel comfortable.
What is it about that? I mean, why is that so bad? Why shouldn't they have a mirror held up to them? Why should I just sit here and go, oh, I'm just not going to say what I actually think?
That's a false dichotomy. You're saying we either have to tolerate it or we have to try our best to make them feel like crap, as if that's going to accomplish anything.
But what do
that's
you propose?
Going to solidify them. You
What do you
realize
propose?
that a huge chunk of the culture war that is driving this is the sense that the coastal elites think that they're stupid rubes, right? Now, I'm not saying their response has been constructive, basically being even more of a rube does not help your case. But if we double down on we really do think you're stupid and you're gullible to boot, that's going to play right into the culture war. And that is, in fact, going to just accelerate the polarization and accelerate the process. And in fact, you are making yourself into a tool of the people who are stoking the culture war for their own financial and political ends.
That's an interesting point, and I can find some value in that, because I certainly don't want to, look, I'm expressing my frustration and my emotion with this cookie cutter person who I've seen and talked to.
But you got to get away from the cookie cutter person.
I know, but
they're not. There are no cookie cutter people. There are just people.
It's remarkable how consistent it is. There are so many things that I'm finding.
But that's the surface layer, because they're parroting the propaganda. But they are not the propaganda that they are parroting.
Yeah.
There's a way more nuanced and complicated person underneath there. And there's a lot of articles and interviews and stuff where you can read about, people do a deeper dive on what gets people to that place. And it is way more nuanced than you might think. Again, forget about the 2 or 3 people that we all know that are insane. Forget about those people, because that's not representative.
Steve, I agree. From a top-down look at it, you are completely right. It's better to be, to act emotionless, to not play into any of the things that outside influences are trying to stir. I totally agree. And I'm not trying to, I'm not saying that this is the right path for everyone, but I am at that point. I'm at a bubbling over point.
Yeah.
But
if it helps, I understand you, but if it helps, one way to look at this is that we are being trolled. We are unequivocally being trolled. And the purpose of the trolling that we are experiencing is to make you feel exactly like you do, so that you will react to the other side exactly as you are, because that drives the conflict, which turns the wheels of the media and the money coming in, right? When people are angry, they read the news and they donate money. And that's what this is all about.
Well, and how far do we take this though, Steve? Because look at the...
You got to rise above, brother.
All right, let's talk. Let me just go one layer deeper here.
Yeah.
What if this comes to a real physical culture war where we have to either decide to put our head down or we have to fight to gain our democracy back.
Again, you're presenting me with this false choice. There's a lot of real estate in
I know
between.
there's a lot of variation in there, but like I don't think it's an unlikely premise that this system falls apart and there's a massive violent culture war. Right? I think that is like 1/3 of the pie that we're looking at here.
Listen, I'm 100% on the side of law and order, regardless of what the political or
agree,
ideological fight is.
But then
so that's easy. If there's any, whoever's pushing the violence, they're wrong, and they need to be stopped. So violence is the line that we cannot cross, no matter what side of the equation you're on.
I don't disagree.
Yeah, but what about before the violence, when an election is won and then it's taken away by the other side because
we have to talk about what we'll do.
Violence. It's like, sorry, you guys think you won, but you really lost, and we're going to just continue with the real winner of this election. No violence yet. What are we going to do?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that is a good question. There are people who are talking about that. We may need to do things like, peaceful protest and walkouts. Like, no, I'm sorry, the country is going to shut down until this is fixed.
I think all priorities, everything that we think is a priority, needs to be out the window and focus on preventing truly fraudulent elections from happening.
Yeah, you're right, Bob.
Because if we don't prevent that, none of this other shit means anything.
I know.
I agree, but how do we make that happen? The politicians aren't doing it. Even the ones that want to do it
they're not doing it. They're probably not going to do it. And that's part of the reason why we're fucked.
How do we make a change in our society? You write your congressman, you peaceful protest, or you go on strike. I mean, there are things that you can do. There are ways. We have to use the political tools, the political mechanisms that we have.
Yeah, I agree.
In order to change the system,
and we're going to have to do that.
But I'm and just hope it doesn't get to the point where those mechanisms fail to such a degree that violence is the only remaining method. That's we've lost then at that point.
Absolutely, I totally
civil
agree.
War. I am not willing to give up on that until it's way past the point of no return.
I know.
I will go down fighting for a peaceful resolution to our democracy, because there is only a peaceful resolution by definition. If you go outside the system, then you are essentially giving up. And again, we're saying the same thing that they're saying now, saying, well, the system, there is no political remedy, so we have to storm the Capitol, and kill people, right? That's the only option that we have left.
Yeah. All right, let's transition.
My only point is we have to plan seriously for that type of this pre-violence actions that are going to need to be done.
Yeah.
Not violence, but the things that are going to need to be done, the drastic steps that are going to need to happen to, in place of the violence that the other side is going to want. We got to know. I don't see enough talk about it.
My plan is get off your ass and vote.
Yeah.
If enough people voted, then there's no issue. Then there's no problem. If you don't vote, and we get to a close election where this constitutional crisis occurs, that's your fault. Then you're a lazy SOB who should have gotten off your ass and voted.
And no matter what country you're in, because voting is important in every country. Everybody that's listening to this, when the elections come in your country, put the time in to make people, especially like-minded, critical thinking people, put the time in to encourage them to vote. That is something that we could do as a community. I have to transition right now.
All right, but let me just put a cap on this. I think this is very emblematic of the situation that we're in. Like, we're arguing about this because there isn't really any great solution or great option here.
Yeah, and I just want to be allowed to be angry.
Yeah, I get that, but the point, unfortunately, your anger is being weaponized. The other side's anger is also being weaponized. Someone in the comments said that that's like a great theory that I have there, but this is not a theory. This is like objectively true. That when we talk about Fox News, what is Fox News? What's their business model? Their business model is to keep their viewers as angry as possible. Yeah. That is their business model. Alex Jones, what's his business model? Is to keep his viewers coming back because they're as angry as possible, and then he wants to sell them snake oil, right? That's the business model. politicians know that voters will donate more money if they're angry. So that there is an incentive built into our current system to keep people angry. And that's what's happening. And that's where we are, right? That's the problem. And if you give into that anger, you're letting yourself be manipulated, right? And the media wins no matter what, because the more people, I mean, Trump was the best thing that happened to the mainstream media in this country because everyone was consuming more news. When things are stable and calm and civil and boring, that's bad for business.
Yep.
Right. And it's bad for everybody in terms of the media or politicians, because people are not as interested. For a long time, people were saying, "Oh, it's a shame that our voter turnout is so low." No, that's actually not a shame. Low voter turnout is a good sign. It means that the stakes are low, and the stakes are low because our system is working. Because win or lose, if you lose, like if your guy doesn't get in, the person you support doesn't win the election, you still go on with your life. It's still fine. Yep. You're not powerless. The world won't go to hell. But we had record turnout last time because the stakes were high in a very bad way. Yeah. We don't want the stakes to be that high. The whole point of a constitutional republic is that the system is such that the losers, when you lose a political fight, it's not supposed to be existential, right? It's not forever.
Exactly.
Yeah,
the system is not supposed to be.
Okay, I would have preferred the other guy, but I'll survive. Right?
The country.
We'll get him next time.
The stability of your country should not be destabilized by a lost election. That in a democracy. Right. All right. Let me.
All right. Let's.
I've got to call this person out. I'm not going to say what their name is. They know who they are. But somebody said something in the chat that really made me upset. And I if you're going to chat it, you're putting yourself out there, and that gives me the right to say it. Somebody actually said in this chat, "I am actively going to party when the U.S. burns to the fucking ground."
What
really?
The fuck? Really?
Really?
They're probably not an American, Jay. We have.
I understand that, but that would be like me saying, "Hey, when Sweden burns to the ground, I'm going to have a party." 320 million people live in this country, and you're gonna freaking say you're gonna party when 350 million people's lives become destabilized? What the hell?
And that will destabilize the world.
Yeah.
Even if
what the hell are you thinking writing that
thing.
In this chat? You're going to party when the U.S. burns to the effing ground. What the hell is that? Unbelievable.
Wow.
I mean, imagine if I said on the podcast, whatever country you're from, imagine if I said on the podcast, I'm going to party when country X burns to the ground. Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for saying that.
All right, let's move on.
Asshole.
Major point.
So I understand we need to make our listeners angry now. In which case,
no, but that really pisses me off.
No, in which case the hat's never coming out. Everybody, so be angry. You'll never get. Is that how we do it? Let's move on to Evans.
Jay, don't feed the trolls.
Whatever. It just I read shit like that. Like you're in.
I'm gonna play a video first. I'm gonna play a video.
You're in this room with these people.
All right, Jay.
We're gonna play a video first, and then Evan, we're gonna do.
Is it kittens? Is it puppies?
It's basically, here.
Please
stand by for fun.
I mean, the fucking nerve of people to actually say.
Yeah, Jay, stop. Stop.
Oh, I want one.
That is cool.
Child, get out of bed! Wake up!
Oi.
Oi, smart home thing that listens to stuff. Turn on the bed shaker.
Okay.
No, he'll never sleep in again. Because
Anyway,
he's got a
there you
first
go.
500C bed shaker. Yep, just take.
That's it. That's all I wanted to show.
That's
Not
awesome.
a real
Wow.
product.
So,
It's,
back in the day, it used to be the parent would go up there with a glass of water and splash the kid or something.
I'm gonna have a talk
Totally
with my
analog.
I'm gonna have a talk with my Alexa and see if I could signal her by saying "Oi, oi."
Oi.
Oi, Siri!
I don't know why it's so shaky.
All right.
Anyway, moving on, we got
More.
Evan.
Hey, what's up, everyone?
Hello.
Hello. Well, there are numbers here, as you can tell. Now, Steve, before the show started, asked me, he said, is that a date? That is what you said, Steve, right?
Mhm.
I think it's Kara's 3,800th birthday.
And I answered Steve, and I said, yes, it is a date, but what date is it?
So is that the Gregorian calendar?
No, it is not the Gregorian calendar. And that's kind of the point of this puzzle. Is we are such a Gregorian centric people.
I
We
wonder
forget
why.
that sometimes there are other calendars that exist out there, and people apparently use them
Yeah.
for for cultural reasons and religious reasons and so many other things. So it's a good reminder that yes, it is not January 7th, 2022 everywhere today. In some places it's, well, in this case, 5/5/57/82. In what I have to say now is one of the Jewish calendars.
Mhm.
And I'll zoom in a little on my screen here so you can see. I put a little hint in here. Oops, hang on, let me move that so you can see. You see that there? The
The little thing.
right there.
The
Yeah, the
Greek
little
dad.
And then an
Jewish.
M.
Right. It's the short for l'chaim, or to life. The Jewish phrase to celebrate. So I figured because of the new year, I'm just going to kind of throw that in there. So happy New Year, everyone! To life for everyone.
Thank you, Evan.
And so as some people pointed out to me, it's the 5th day of Shavat. That's the name of the month. But Shavat is, and I'm reading this only now, the Shavat is the 5th month of the civil year, starting in Tishre, Tishre, and the 11th month of the year in the Hebrew calendar, starting in Nisan, Nisan. So there are multiple Jewish calendars, and I think I knew that at one point, but I forgot. But basically, what I did is when I plugged in what is today's date on the Jewish calendar, and this is what came up. So that's why I went with this, as opposed to 5/11/57/82. Also in the United States, we put our month before the day, before the year, where I think universally, just about everywhere else, they go day, month, year. Have you guys noticed that? You guys know that, right?
Yeah.
Does that ever bother you?
And
I
mildly.
have to
right.
make a mental adjustment when I'm reading international
Could be year, month, day.
calendar.
Sometimes it's confusing.
Your
'cause
month,
it could be
Your month
either
day is
way.
better.
And someone wants me, Jason S., don't forget to mention the Jewish calendar has a leap month instead of a leap day. Ooh, very interesting. Very
That's
cool.
fun.
I think I remember reading that a while ago too. So many correct answers. It should be impossible to kind of
Leap month.
throw it out
Put it
there
out.
to who was the winner. So a lot of correct guesses, which really surprised me that they would be able to pick up on this and realize it was the Jewish dates, today's Jewish day. So well done, everyone.
Yay.
And Happy New Year.
Happy.
That's the main point here.
Oh, really?
The
You know what?
you
This
had
fucking
the
guy,
thing that confused
my
me for a
reaction
while,
was
though.
horribly predictable. Like,
Jay,
literally,
Jay.
wait. Let me just say one more thing.
You are
just
cranky
please log
tonight.
off, go away, and don't
Jay,
come
just
back.
ignore the trolls.
Steve,
Jay, I'm telling
I
you.
shouldn't have
agree
typed
with
it to
you.
him.
I'm
I'm
telling
sorry,
you,
Jay.
you need
I-
to stop. You need to just listen to
Intellectually,
me
you are
and
correct,
stop. And
but I
stop
want this.
engaging.
I want this person to leave. I want
Stop.
them
No,
to-
just stop.
to
Jay,
log off.
just ignore them, please. Just stop. What you had me though, Evan, was that 5/5 was the date of our first show.
Ian,
Yes,
ban
and
that
that's-
person
yeah,
if
right.
you don't mind. Ian.
All right, fine.
Yeah, May 5th
I'm
is
sorry.
Bye-bye.
Was
You're
our-
so-
was
you're
our
sorry.
start
I
date.
misunderstood your comment. Right? What
episode number 1. So yes, that in a way has a bit of direct SGU significance to it. So, and apparently what I said really upset Jay. He just walked out on me, so I apologize.
Wow.
I guess we're gonna do the quiz.
There's nothing awkward
Bye.
about
Let's take
that
a
at all.
question.
Don't worry. Yeah.
Oh, it's questions. Very good. Oh, did everybody see or anybody see Don't Look Up?
I did.
I
yeah.
did. Yeah,
Anybody enjoy it?
one of the things about being sick with COVID is that it afforded me time to actually be in front of a television and at my computer screen more, or my computer's hooked up to my TV, so it's all one and the same. And I'm not big on program watching. I don't binge watch a lot, but I actually over those 10 days watched some stuff, and that was one of the things I definitely watched was Don't Look Up.
I liked it. I thought it was really, really funny. So first of all, you have to take it for what it is. It was a comic satire, right?
Mhm.
So it wasn't serious, and it was absolutely satire. So, you just had to take it for what it was. I also think that it was very Simpsons-esque, where they kind of made fun of everybody. I mean, there was definitely a narrative, in the show. It was, in fact, it was what was interesting was years ago, Phil Plait, the bad astronomer, said, ignoring climate change is like ignoring a asteroid barreling towards the Earth.
Right.
What if the world's astronomers said that there's a 60% chance we're going to get hit by an asteroid? But if we want to do something about it, we got to do something about it now, and with the same political reaction to that as the political reaction to climate change. So he made the same, analogy that then they used as the core of the movie. The movie, is about a comet that's going to hit the Earth, and the scientists, you can't get anybody to listen to them or to respond in a reasonable way. About it, and as a metaphor for the how dysfunctional our response to climate change is. So I thought there was a lot of really funny moments in the movie for me. I was entertained by it.
Yeah, and it was conveying a lot of different messages, and like Steve said, no one was free of the escape of being the victim of satire or made fun of, or had some actual pretty hard points to make about those types of people in our society. And also, Steve, something else you mentioned the other night when we were talking about it is, depending on who you are and what your your leanings are, you could read different things into different characters in that movie. I know that we had some differing opinions as to what Kara sort of thought, as far as I think some of maybe the points about morality on some of these characters, in which there was no pure protagonist, right? There's no hero, clean, perfectly clean hero of the story. That it was a variety. There was good and bad kind of in everyone. You could make arguments more or less for some of the characters, but not every, but again, and this kind of also gets back to what you talked about earlier today, is that none of us are perfect.
Yeah.
We're not pristine. We're not these, we're not these paragons of virtue at all times in our lives. It's impossible to live up to those standards. So it definitely reveals the flaws in lots of different ways, in lots of different types of people. And I thought the movie did a very succinct and poignant job of
and they did a good job of I think creating the sense that the system was broken, right? And the individuals didn't have the power to do anything about it, because the structures that were set up were all on autopilot. They try to interface with the media, and the media was doing what they do, and they could not react to the change, right? They completely misread the situation and just kept going with their script. Politicians were stuck in doing what they do, and they couldn't break from their script either. And so, you have this situation where it's like, no, this is different now. This is different than anything that's ever happened before. We're going to be wiped out. All of your old concerns are now irrelevant. And the only thing that matters is that there's a comet that's going to hit the world in 6 months.
That's the equalizer. That is the one common thing.
Nobody could break out of their patterns. And I think that's basically what's happening. Like the world can't break out of we're so locked into our power structure in terms of how things work. We don't have the flexibility to react to something, the game changing to something new, and that's happening in a lot of ways, again.
And they're each in their own bubbles in a way, even right down to the Ariana Grande character. That's who was, right, the actress.
Oh, that was the funniest part.
Really, that was like
the social media people,
perfect.
The world is obsessed with this relationship between, whatever, this like social media singer and her boyfriend, and like it matters less than nothing, again, when facing the end of the world, and yet, everyone couldn't break away from this superficial obsession And this again, the social media, influencers and people they're just too easy to make fun of. And of course, we're making fun of ourselves because this is our culture.
Absolutely, yeah.
But it was too easy.
Yeah,
But it was fun.
healthy reminders.
I thought it
in
was
that-
funny.
Yeah, and healthy reminders in that movie for us all.
All right, should we do the quiz now?
Yeah.
Yes, let's do the quiz.
We can't. I'm getting a 500 error, so Frank's working on it. Hopefully,
500 error. Is that like a 404 error?
Well, 404 is not found. So 500 is server not working.
Oh, Frank said the server's down.
Enough with the techno battle.
He didn't really say it. It's just it's giving me
It's
a
down.
500 error.
You didn't have to say it.
He might be doing a restart. So I emailed him. So
right,
let's see. We didn't
we'll
talk
talk
about
in
the James
Well, then
Webb.
it's ready for next week.
Yeah, and
James
before I
Webb.
forget, wait, Steve, before I forget. So
Yeah.
Frank, Frank is the guy that makes our quiz software.
I laugh every time I hear that.
And he also is hosting a Skeptics Guide Minecraft
Minecraft.
server.
Yep.
And
That's
he asked me
right.
again. Yeah, he wants people to know about it because there's actually a pretty fun community on there. And
I
there's lots of
occasionally
great
dip
stuff.
in.
Yeah, it's fun. It's a lot of really cool things that people built on there. So if you're interested, Ian, what is the address for that?
Oh, glad I had that.
Is
right
it social
handy.
dot?
Something like mine?
I-
Yeah,
I
skeptics.social. Somebody put in the chat who's there.
I could pull it up.
It's something like that.
You know,
Yeah,
and I'd
James Webb. So James Webb is doing awesome. It's completely extended its sun shields and it's
Yep.
completely now unfolded its mirrors. So I think it's like the hard part is over. There's still other steps that need to go. But
So
How
far,
many
so good.
discrete steps
So
were
far, so
there?
good.
I heard that there
50 or
was
something,
like
30, 40.
30
A
or
lot.
40.
There
Yeah.
were. I took notes on this stuff when
I heard one
350, I
scientist said that he likened the sunscreens to a SPF 1,000,000 or something like that.
Yeah.
Oh wow, yeah.
The link
Which is
now.
so
Okay,
important.
It is a-
Bob, guys, there were 344 single points of failure that
Yep.
could happen along the entire
344.
journey.
So do we know where they
344.
are in that number? Are they like in the past 300? Where are we? I wish I knew.
300.
Well,
I don't know.
But
exactly
a
where.
point of failure isn't necessarily a discrete event, that needs to happen. I don't think it's not necessarily. I think in terms of like discrete events that needed to happen, the number was much lower. Like,
Yeah.
okay, now we do this and then now we do there. But each step could have multiple points of failure.
And I would hope that
I think
they.
I haven't taken a deep dive into that.
My guess, speaking from total ignorance, is that
That's
if they do anticipate certain things won't happen, therefore, what's the plan B in case it doesn't happen? And then they go to that playbook, and hopefully it fixes whatever
Okay.
problem. So
I'm glad there's some plan Bs, because what scared me the most about this is that this was so far away, because it's going to Lagrange too, right? It's so far
Mhm.
away
Yes.
that if there was a major screw
Nothing
up,
you could
that's
do.
it. Game over, done. Billion.
Yeah, you can't. Yeah,
all that
It's a
time
pretty
out.
hunk of
Yeah.
metal in
Gone.
space. Yeah.
it's all or nothing. It's a
That's scary. And still, I won't be.
and
I
and
won't
they
be relaxed until I see some of the first images, because that's
they were
just way
talking
too
about
scary.
why also that led to the delay after the delay after the delay, Bob, because of that very point. They had to
Yes,
get
good.
this right.
Good.
And if
I'll
you had to
gladly
take
wait.
extra 5 to 7 or 8 years, whatever it
Yeah,
took,
whatever.
then
Whatever
fine.
it takes.
Then it
So
was
did
totally worth the delay.
Do you think that they just sat in a room and had that thing like unfold and fold back up, like it just kept watching it? And I wonder what their process
guess.
was. It's
I don't know if
interesting.
they-
to
Yeah,
think-
that is interesting, Jay. I don't know. How do you be sure that something's going to work that's never been really done before, and you can't replicate it? There is no little
zero
area
gravity,
to replicate.
super cold temperatures. Like it's maybe super hot on one side and super cold on another side. You know what I mean? Like it's like such a weird environment. I wonder if they did a simulation. Like they must.
Sure, I bet
must have
they
done-
had some. Yeah, I'm sure they did some simulations, and completely virtual too. It wouldn't surprise me. But you never, for something like this, you never know until you do it.
Yeah.
So
Well, Bob, just look forward to the very, very likely future of us seeing unbelievable imagery coming out of that thing this year. It's going to be, we're going to see some remarkable stuff. We're going to find things that we've never seen before. We're going to see parts of our universe we've never seen before. It's going to be amazing.
But keep in mind, the James Webb Telescope is not a visible light telescope like Hubble. It's
infrared,
an
more infrared.
telescope. Yeah. So it's not going to give us the same kind of pretty pictures. I don't know.
But it's going to teach us stuff, though.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's going to
that's-
be great astronomy, great science. I guess that they could use, which they do anyway, like processing and false color and whatever, and it'll still produce fascinating images. but it's going to be different kinds of images than what we're getting from Hubble. That's kind of the point. Like it's a new kind of eye into the universe.
Webb works in conjunction with other instruments
Yeah.
out there to help refine that data, and it's going to give us the most accurate, scientists the most accurate data possible, so that those other images and the other tools can work even better at their jobs.
Yeah, but look at the profound images that came out of the Hubble. Like those were not even in visible light spectrum. You know, like we're talking about infrared and stuff like that. Like they're colorizing the things that we're seeing anyway, just to make them.
It's always false color. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So guys, I want to
Jupiter's always
apologize.
upside down or something, right? That's never right.
I want to apologize for everyone. I got really pissed off.
You did?
I said, I had a horrible holiday. I don't want to give my excuses, but I had a very rough 2 weeks. And then January 6th came around, and I, heard Biden's speech yesterday, and I got super angry and frustrated, and and I came into this. I came into today knowing I was going to talk about things that were going to piss me off. And that comment that guy, a series of comments that guy put up pushed me over the edge. And I'm sorry, I shouldn't behave that way. I am a very emotional person, and stuff like that just blows my mind. But no excuse. And Steve, you're right. I mean, I've got to keep a lid on it, and I shouldn't, I want to lean into people and make them feel the discomfort that they've made us feel. But you're right. It doesn't work. Obviously it doesn't work. It's we're emotional beings, and we want to fight back, and we've got to try to be as rational as we can.
Well, it's not how we approach people who aren't aware of skepticism and sort of those thoughts. We don't go after them with sledgehammers. We take a very different tact, and perhaps that's the right tact.
I know it's just an extension of what we learned as skeptics. Like as skeptics, we know that while it may be fun to make people who fall for pseudoscience, it doesn't get you anywhere. Our goal is to not make people feel stupid, but to make them feel empowered by giving them new critical thinking tools. So I don't
different
know
ways of
how,
thinking about things that they never thought about before.
Yeah. Right. So anyway, I think if our role in all this is to, step back and say, let's just all, focus a little bit more on critical thinking. If there's any pathway out of all of this mess, that's it. And if we're not going to do it, who is? I mean, collectively, like people, academics, educators, skeptics, scientists, etc.
Yeah, I mean, I just look at it like in a weird way, like I'm watching myself do it too. Like there's a part of my mind that is observing my emotions bubble over.
Yeah,
and I find it interesting in a lot of ways because I do have like this ability to detach. And and then I calm down. I look at my behavior, and I'm like, man, I really got pissed off. Like I'm not upset that I got pissed off. I mean, that's part of life. I'm an emotional person. I get angry. I get happy. My emotions are very strong. Luckily, I don't behave with my anger. Like I don't do things that are bad with anger, and that's the worst. That's the worst version of it. And I also, it made me realize like what. This is a profound question, but what value does anger have? It's there. Is there a reason why it's there? Is there a
like evolutionarily?
Like why am I experiencing this wash of anger over things that I feel are so unjust? What's the point?
You have to understand, I think, that question in the context that human beings are very tribal, and not in a good way. We are tribal in a very bad way. It is one of the real dark underbellies of the human psyche that we have to deal with constantly, and we have to rise above. And it's very easy, as Carl Sagan said, you feel these primitive instincts reaching for the controls, and it takes the critical thinking and the self-awareness, the metacognition to pull them back.
Yeah.
And part of this is it's very easy to fall into an us versus them. We're right, they're wrong. We're good, they're bad. They're dumb, they're gullible, whatever. Sort of tribalism, and you can find a million reasonable ways to justify it, but it doesn't lead anywhere good. It just an endless cycle of tribalism and polarization. Democracy again, that's the catch-22, and democracy is all about rising above the tribalism. And when this is why I think the trolling is a perfect example. Trolls are a no-win scenario.
Yeah,
because you can't ignore them and you can't engage with them, right?
Yep.
And what I think what's essentially happened is one of the two political parties in this country have become a party of trolls. And what do? You can't functionally engage with them. You can't ignore them. And if you criticize them, you just reinforce this whole sequence.
You know, and
And
here,
so it's kind of a no-win scenario unless we could find some pathway to just slowly sort of work our way. We have to really, really let our more calmer, more intellectual, more critical thinking, skills sort of rise above these tribal instincts. And anger is at the root of it all. Anger is what drives our sense of justice. It drives our sense of tribalism, our sense of right and wrong. There is some, adaptive benefit to that, but man is at a double-edged sword. The problem is we evolved in these isolated tribes of 200, 300, 1,000 people, whatever, and now we have a global civilization of approaching 8 billion people, but we have the same tribal instincts we had when we were in these small hunter-gatherer groups.
Oh yeah, totally. I know when you think about the programming that we come with. I mean, literally your brain develops and there is wiring in there there's a ton of wiring in there that is you already. You know what I mean? It's not like you created yourself. You are the subject of yourself.
Yeah.
That's why like practicing being an intellectual and learning critical thinking and skepticism as a philosophy has given me this incredible perspective, because I can see myself outside of the emotional person that I am. I can view myself as from an intellectual perspective and comment to myself about my emotional side, which is interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And you said, you hit the nail on the head, Steve. I mean, this live stream is important to me. I think it's a good thing that we did when we started it. We did it because we wanted to help people. We talk about stuff here that we don't talk about on the show. Really, it's an important sanctuary for me. I look forward to these shows. And for someone to come in here and do that, you can call the person a troll. I think the person really believed what they were saying. And I took massive offense to that kind of talk here. I mean, if I'm on Facebook and I'm on somebody else's thing, I read stuff like that. I do it all the time. I don't give a crap. But in here, I'm like, this is a place among peers. You're in a room full of critical thinkers. We are all here trying to learn something that is bettering ourselves, bettering the world, and for someone to talk crap like that in this room, to me, it's beyond insulting. That's why I got so angry at that. I don't know. And then he couldn't apologize. Like, he doubled down on it.
Yeah,
like,
but
he did,
ignore it. Man. Just got to ignore it.
Don't worry, Jay. This will just end up on Reddit Livestream fails.
Yeah, I know.
Ooh.
Yeah, thanks. My kids will watch this in 20 years. My kids will see this in 20 years.
Everybody, it's not going to work because I can't control the back end of the quiz. So that's where I'm getting the 500 error.
You've lost control?
Yes, I have lost control. You can click on things and see what it does. But
all right.
Well, I have more questions. Oh, go ahead, Bob.
I was just going to say I got some chicken pot pie waiting for me that I'm looking forward to.
Hey, Bob, you know what I found out
I
today?
want chicken pot pie.
That chicken pot pie that we like from Costco, it now costs $27 to buy
Worth it. And the one I have is left over, which makes it even better.
Yeah, they are
Only
better.
One day left over. Ooh, I can't wait. All right.
A bunch of questions. So this one's for Steve, potentially, or everybody. In the past, I would make the point it isn't just about your personal health, but important to society to get vaccinated. I'm not sure we can make that argument as strongly, though, since if everyone gets Omicron and it just becomes endemic, it isn't clear how much marginal benefit there is for others. Still helps keep you out of the hospital, but I have a harder time arguing against the libertarian sort of perspective.
So that doesn't work for a number of reasons. You just threw one away, like the idea that we're trying to keep the hospitals from getting overwhelmed, right? Mm-hmm. And believe me, they're getting overwhelmed, and it's bad. And people are dying because they can't get their elective surgery that they need, like their cardiac bypass or whatever. It's not good. The only real way to slow this down, because we're not going to go into lockdown again. I mean, there's nobody wants to do that. That is also a double-edged sword. The best way to avoid the hospitals getting overwhelmed is to get vaccinated. The other thing is saying that we'll just let everybody catch Omicron, then we'll be fine. It's not true. First of all, you get better protection with the vaccine, especially if you're fully boosted. And again, if you've been infected, you still get better protection with the vaccine. Plus, remember long COVID. You don't get long COVID from the vaccine. You can get it from the virus. Everything is worse with the virus.
Yeah.
Any side effect of the vaccine is actually more likely to happen if you actually get infected. We could be creating a healthcare disaster that we will be
Down the
dealing with for a
road, yeah.
generation.
Oh,
We don't want that
bad.
to happen. So just giving in and saying, "I'll just let everybody get Omicron and then we'll be fine," is wrong. The other thing is that when you let the virus actually go through an infection cycle in somebody, especially if you're unvaccinated, that increases the probability of new variants occurring.
Yeah.
The best way to shut down variants is to shut down the virus from replicating. And the best way to do that is to have your antibodies first by getting vaccinated, not by going through an infection with Omicron. So it's way better to get vaccinated. There is no legitimate medical argument or scientific argument that it's better to be infected or to let the infection run its course. Not at all.
Nope.
All right, let's shut this down, guys. People got to eat dinner.
We have one final
Popeye.
question, not to bring it back up, but this one's for Jay. Jay, why don't you leave the quote unquote basement of the internet YouTube chat and spend more time in the relatively calmer Discord chat?
That's a good question.
There
I
you go.
lurk in there.
Sorry, YouTube.
I lurk in there. I mean, the true answer is this. I'm very busy. I don't do a lot of things. Like I don't have a lot of time to spend in social media if it's not for the SGU, right? So even when I'm reading the Discord, I'm reading it as an employee of the SGU just to see what people are doing and see what's going on. Like I wish I had more time to just socialize and do that, but I appreciate it. You're right. I got to focus my energies in better places, I think.
I think that's just Discord poking fun at YouTube.
I get it, but I had to give them, my
Discord wants more Jay. I don't blame him.
Weisenheimer.
So we are back on the Friday schedule because the holidays are over. I've said this before. Do something nice for someone in your life this weekend, right?
Especially if they're on the other end of the political spectrum.
Yeah,
That's right.
Except that guy that
Chicken
was
Popeye?
in the chat.
Chicken Popeye.
All right. Thanks, everyone. Thanks, Ian.
Bye, everybody.
Bye, guys.
Ian. Thank you,
Bye-bye.
Jay.
Happy
Thank
New
you,
Year,
Steve.
Bye.
Thank you,
Evan.
Bob.
Bye,
Good
Bob.
day.
Bye, Jay.
Skeptic's Guide to the Universe is produced by SGU Productions, dedicated to promoting science and critical thinking. For more information, visit us at theskepticsguide.org. Send your questions to info@theskepticsguide.org. And if you would like to support the show and all the work that we do, go to patreon.com/skepticsguide and consider becoming a patron and becoming part of the SGU community. Our listeners and supporters are what make SGU possible.
USA, 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 USA.
It's
Welcome
the
to
COVID
the
club.
post-stream show.
It's the COVID club.
I love how I changed that graphic like in
That was so
record
good, man.
time. Record time.
That was
It's
good.
like you have
I saw
another.
you.
Look at
So,
that.
when I found out that you got COVID basically on the day that I got it, I couldn't believe it. Like after 2 years of avoiding this freaking plague, you and I both got it at the same time.
Yeah, well, I mean, in a certain way, I was looking at it like I might be on borrowed time here. For a while, I considered myself fortunate that I hadn't got it. I also hadn't had like a regular cold.
Yeah.
Also in that time. So
Never?
I kind of felt in a way I was overdue in a matter of speaking. And then I did resign myself to like, okay, well, if I do get it, I've got my vaccinations, just got my booster, then, at least I know I'm not going to be likely not going to be in this state of feeling like near death or actually being near death. So I took comfort in that.
Yeah, me too. I mean, I really like, I don't think I fully said what I wanted to say earlier. Like my appreciation for the people, the scientists and engineers and people who worked on this technology and developed the mRNA platform, and even, whatever, just the in general, the vaccines, the modern vaccines. It's profound what they did. It's unbelievable when you look at the science and read about like what they figured out, and the fact that billions of vaccines have been administered around the world now.
Mm-hmm.
It's remarkable, and we benefit from it in such a profound way. But it's like you go get the vaccine, and I don't even think like people like us can fully appreciate all the work that it took to pull it off.
And the microchips are so small now. It's even
I know.
better. You don't even feel it.
It doesn't hurt at all. And
Not at all.
when Bill Gates talks to me at night, I
Oh,
just
love
listen
it.
and do
Whisper in
what
my
he
ear,
says.
Billy.
That's right. Buy Microsoft. Buy Microsoft.
But this is why I say science is one of, if not the best, most profound feats of humanity.
Without a doubt.
We have philosophy, art, so many expressions of our minds. But science, what could possibly be cooler or more profound than science?
Oh gosh, I mean, can you imagine if we were alive, Jay, 150 years ago, having to scramble, with the limited knowledge, even the science was just kind of really in a way in its infancy back then.
Yep.
And just all the horrible things that people had to kind of deal with on a day-to-day basis. They did. Some, a lot of them survived, a lot didn't.
Yeah.
We need to, and allow me to say this, count our blessings for science, if I can say that, and realize that we're living in a very privileged time. We're very fortunate to be alive now and on the cusp of things, and we really do have to concentrate on the good things that especially science has to offer. It protects us from so many other horrible things in life.
I mean, you think about that, we have the world botched handling the virus, right? So many governments screwed up and made horrible decisions, and we watch politicians like falling all over themselves, making ridiculous decisions and everything. And of course, science comes around the corner and like delivers something that saved millions of lives.
Yep.
And,
I mean, it wasn't prayer groups, and it wasn't positive thinking, and it wasn't my chakra, and it wasn't all the other things that some people like attributing to their own sense of well-being or benefits of life. It was none of that. It was the rigors of science that once again, science saves the day. So that, and for those who remember, I gave 2 quotes at the end of the year. And one was like, the joke was the Professor Farnsworth, but he says, once again, science saves the day, the end.
Yeah.
So yes, it was funny, but in a way also correct. Carl Sagan was right on when he said science delivers the goods. The results, the proof is in the tasting of the pudding, as Steve pointed out also earlier in the year.
That's why it's so frustrating when you think about like science actually says and does, like science does this. Science goes, okay, here's some technology. Here's something that works. We can prove it. Here's the proof. And people still deny it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's the one thing that actually comes with proof in our reality is
they
science.
deny it to a certain extent, but they're still using their computers. They're still taking their antibiotics.
I know.
For the
They're
most part.
arguing with people on their phone.
So the fact that they have certain beliefs about certain things doesn't seem to get in the way of them also enjoying all of the advantages that the very science has to offer that actually got us to this point.
But it's the one thing in life that comes with like the ability to believe it because there's proof behind it. You could be talking to a friend of yours and you don't know if what they're saying is legitimate, if they're even being honest with you or themselves. Like there's all these things that we experience in our lives that have question marks over them. But with science, at least, like you could read about how an iPhone works and you could see the work that it takes to do it.
Mm-hmm.
It's the proof is built into the science itself. It comes with like this manual. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it ultimately wins the day and society benefits as a whole from it, regardless of what other people have to say or think or fight against it in their own way. Despite that, it actually, it frankly has bypasses all of that static,
Yeah.
and just continues to be the process by which we are able to make the most sense and understanding of the universe that we live in.
But
It's profound. There's
but
nothing
of
even
all
there's nothing even comes close to it.
no,
Nothing.
of all the things to deny, to deny expertise and to deny the achievements of science, like where are the crystal healing deniers?
Right.
Where are the chi deniers? Like why isn't there 5 million people marching because they don't believe in chi? Like, but you don't believe in science, the one thing that comes with proof, and you don't believe it, like that. Like, come
Yeah.
on.
It can be maddening.
I know.
It can be. It
It's part of the
definitely can.
reason why I cry.
Yeah, I
Um,
know. I know. But also us, we took on the responsibility many years ago, decades ago,
yeah.
of wanting to try to explain this better to people, because in a lot of sense the media, mainstream media, has ultimately failed to do so. And the scientists who are performing the science are doing what they're supposed to be doing, and they're not communication experts. So we realized also that this would be a place where we can do our part, you and me, Jay, specifically. I mean,
Yeah.
Steve is obviously a doctor, so he's got certain other levels of expertise that we don't have. But at
Yeah.
the same time, that doesn't preclude us from helping carry the message,
Yeah.
and to do it in a way in which people can come to an understanding about what we're saying, sort of on their own terms. It's one, like I said earlier, it's one thing to be hit over the head with things with a blunt instrument, regardless of it being correct or incorrect. You have to get people to, it takes time, it takes patience,
Totally. Absolutely.
and you have to work, and you
Yeah.
have to work at it. We knew this was a long term investment of our lives, that what we were basically getting into with the Skeptic's Guide. But it's important enough that here we are, 25, 26 years into really doing this,
Unbelievable, man. I
half
can't
my
believe it.
life, and the rewards have been tremendous. And I know we've made differences in people's lives, and
Yeah.
they tell us, and that is such great personal satisfaction, and also a testament to the power of it all. And it really is a great way of knowing and making sense of a world that our brains try to trick us all the time, that that maybe it's a different kind of world, but we have to come back to the science.
I'm more of a fanboy of science now than I was when I in my 20s and 30s. I always feel marveled by it. It always blows my mind. Like, when the internet came out, when cell phones were created, like you're looking at the James Webb Telescope, like things like that, it doesn't ever become old. It is like, getting a brief moment to be a kid again when I get super enthusiastic about some scientific achievement.
Well, what was available to us, Jay, in say the 80s, that we could have learned from our science? We had television shows, we had classes, we had instruction in formal classes, we had books and magazines. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
I mean, when you compare it to the resources, frankly, we have available today, and that's why the internet is such for all the bad things it does. I mean, I still think I think the good outweighs the bad by far.
Totally.
I'm able to learn thousands of times more information that I ever could have consumed by just going through the analog way of obtaining that kind of knowledge. Just such a slower path. It makes it more accessible in greater volume to more people than ever before, and it's so powerful.
I used to lie around. My parents bought us the Britannica. Remember the Encyclopedia Britannica? Yeah. So we had like a bookshelf filled, 2 rows of these books, and I remember I just go in, I pick any one of them out. It doesn't matter, because you just flip through this thing and like fill my head up with this information. And to me, that was one of my favorite things to do as a kid. It was like playing with toys, like the feeling that I would get from reading about stuff and looking at the pictures. And my kids take so much for granted. They don't understand, like when the things that they have access to, even like the way that they're being educated is so much. I really do think, after being a parent, I have a 6-year-old and a soon to be 9-year-old. The methodology that they teach children today, how to read and write, it really blew my mind when I wrapped my head around, like there is a process that has been developed that pushes language and understanding of it into their minds. And I think it's brilliant. I just look at that. I wasn't aware of it when I was being taught, and I'm sure that the system has even gotten better. But to think that the way that they understand the order in which things need to be learned and at what age they're going to pick up on what things, I think that it's so cool to watch my kids. Like my daughter could not read 6 months ago, and she could read today.
That's it.
In 6 months.
Corner. Yep.
I know. It's unreal.
I know it seems instant. It was building up to that point. It was inevitable, but when it does happen, it is sort of a light going off moment. Definitely. All right, Ian, what should we do? Let you go eat? You want to be with your family?
Yeah, you guys see a baby or something?
Gotta see a baby
was this a podcast or something?
Yeah, that's it. You got anything else to say? What else?
No,
we
we're
gotta
good.
do?
I mean, I can
we'll
talk
leave it
for
at
3
that.
more hours, but I got to go spend time with my family.
Yeah.
Yep.
The hat thing may actually happen, by the way, everybody. I was just kidding.
Ooh, the hat.
No, the hat thing is I have samples
Talking
being
about
delivered to me right now.
Yeah, right now.
Oh,
I told you.
That's why he left the room earlier. He
This
was
hat.
like, oh,
right
hat.
here.
Yes,
Yeah,
right.
right,
Yeah,
right.
the whole
Right.
conversation we had
The whole
about
thing.
that hat right there.
I'll tell you what's happening. I found a company
What's
that has
happening? What's
this blank,
Thank you.
and they claim to have a stitch in the hat stitching machine that is supposed to be just as good as a sewn on patch.
Okay.
So I paid for a sample to see their stitch machine, like to see the quality.
That's right. Prove it.
If it's not good, I'll just have this. I'm going to have the same hat recreated, and people will have to pay for what it costs. But
Yeah. And we'll probably have the drop shipping available. I think we figured that out, some warehousing. But most of all, if you come to Extravaganza or some other events like the one, did we advertise the one in April? Yeah.
not yet. We don't have the date.
March.
We don't have
Okay.
all the details.
No,
locked in
the
yet,
other
but
thing.
We have shows
that
coming up.
thing.
End of March.
So March, bada bing, bada boom, and there'll be hats there probably.
You heard it here first on the Post Extreme Show.
That's right.
The Post Extreme Show.
Extreme.
The Post Extreme Show. Oh, that's a good name for the show.
That's it. Let's call it the Post Extreme
The
Show.
Post Extreme Show. Absolutely. I'm going to make them a banner and a little. Yeah, we'll get working on it. The Post Extreme Show. That is it.
And all right, so we got to keep count. So what is this, like the 5th one we've done?
At least.
Oh yeah, at least. So yeah, I guess we'll have to go back in and
we've had some.
We're going to number these.
We'd have some offline post stream shows, but I don't know if that counts.
But I think what we should do, let's figure out what number it is, and every week we'll laugh at how Bob and Steve continue to not know. You know what I mean?
Get it?
like how far can we go?
Secret.
This is what we'll do right
Yeah.
now. Everybody that's listening to this.
Yeah.
Next week when we do this, everybody bring the number of episodes you think it'll take before Bob and Steve find out about that.
Okay, but it's got to be double digits because somebody's gonna somebody's gonna be like, "Oh, I'm gonna tell them."
No, of course. If anybody
Like,
actually
keep the
emails
secret,
them,
you ding-dongs.
we're gonna come get you. Don't
Yeah.
do that. Just let's see how long this goes
Just
before.
see how-
Rule
Go
number 1 about the
over
Post Extreme
30.
Show.
Try to
not talk
let's
about
try
the
to
Post
get
Extreme
9.
Show.
The Post Extreme Show. I love it.
42. That's the number.
I want to make that
Ooh,
T-shirt. 42. That would be great if we got that. And then
They
what are
probably
they
do
going
know
to
Have
do?
how-
our own merch for this show. That would be cool. But don't share it with Bob. You cannot wear it in front of Bob or Steve.
Yeah.
Right, that's right.
Well, they won't even know what it is. We could wear it.
Oh,
They
we
won't
should
even
make the
know.
watermelon post stream show or something like that. It's like a super sub.
All right, guys, have a great
That's it.
weekend.
Good stuff. All
Listen
right.
to the
take
show
care,
tomorrow.
everyone.
We'll see you next week.
Next Friday.
Bye-bye.
Thanks, Ian.
I'm going to toggle you
Thank
off
you,
one at
Ian.
a time.
Bye.
Good day.
Goodbye.
Bye, Evan.
Hey.
Bye, Jay. I don't know what he said, but he said something. Wait, hold on. Jay, say it again.
Eat some meatballs.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Now all the vegans are mad at us. Okay, goodbye.